So you got. It's the number one. I do love playing this thing, even without an amp. It's
hot.
a lot of folks have played with John in New York. There's a lot of us that have done it, and I've met him over the years. He's an amazing. He's a real artist. He's a real artist, and I often make the analogy of it's like working with a mad scientist. You know, so many stories. I went in on Lance's recommendation and went and had coffee with John and was hired. There was no audition. It was, this should be the guy. And John met me and goes, "Yeah, I guess you should be the guy." And I started showing up to rehearsals, and we spent a good amount of time working out the new material that we were going to be promoting, which involved computers and loops and things like that. So we spent a good portion of the rehearsal for that tour working that out. And then the last week or so, we had to learn the greatest hits.
Yes, right.
And so he would tell me the night before, tomorrow we're going to do a Chinese Envoy, and, whatever it's going to be. So, I'd go to Tower Records and I bought the box set or whatever, and I went home and learned that, having been in New York now a bunch of years and knowing what I'm supposed to do, which is get inside the material. Right. And I would come back the next day and I would know the song and I'd be ready and he'd count it off. And it would end and he'd look at me and go, "What were you doing?" I'm saying, "Well, I'm playing the part that." "Don't do that." Because, so he was always encouraging me to not play the record. He's like, "I played the bass on that. If I wanted that, I would do it." So what was interesting about that experience was him nudging me to do stuff outside of not only what he did, but outside of what I was comfortable doing. I've always played with my fingers direct into an amp, and I would show up to rehearsal and he would suggest that I play with a pick, and he would suggest that I put an effect on it. And by the time I think we rehearsed 3 weeks for that tour. By the time we left for the tour, I was playing out of a pedal board with a pick, with a 2 pickup bass, right? I went out and bought a jazz bass because I've always played single pickup basses. So I'm playing with a pick through distortion. And then the very last week of rehearsals, I show up and the road crew guys were rehearsing at a soundstage at Big Mike's, I think it was. I walk in and they're setting up a keyboard rig where the bass station was, and I'm kind of looking around and going, as maybe somebody else was coming in to sit in that day, and I asked the guy, the roadie that was setting it up, he goes, "No, John asked us to set this up. He said you're going to be playing this on a good portion of the show." Well, I had never been, he never asked me. So of course John comes in, he goes, "Yeah, what do you think? You up for it?" I'm like, "Well, John, I don't play keyboards, right?" He's like, "Exactly." And that proves the whole mad scientist point. He's just constantly pushing people to do stuff outside of their comfort zone. And everything I did on that tour was outside of my comfort zone. I'm playing with a pick. We would open the show and I'm playing, 2-finger playing weird synth sounds on the keyboard, and it was exciting and it was definitely fun. And I don't know if I would ever do any of it again, but he encouraged me to
Few band leaders will do
because this is what I want to do, right? I want to come in and play eighth notes and quarter notes on the roots and follow the left hand of the guitar player around because I know I do that, pretty good, and that's what people want me around for. But what the experience with John did was, when something different has to happen, now I know I can, because he did. He encouraged me to just do something totally opposite of what I would.